Okay, so today is day 3, and the only change I've made so far is I've cut the Arthur Pendragon, and I put in a fourth space-time collapse. Now, I don't know if that fourth space-time collapse is correct, but I think cutting the Arthur Pendragon, even though it brings our Perceval hit count down from 15 to 14, not including the Perceval that's being played itself, I think that's correct, and here's why. When you consider 5 drops in this game, they always feel awkward. Unless you're playing some sort of like really heavy control deck. If you're playing a really heavy control deck, higher cost cards are not as bad as long as you don't run like a lot of them. Because your goal is to make it to that point anyway. Your goal is to try to stabilize and then win in sort of like the mid to late game. But this deck isn't particularly trying to do that. This deck doesn't play as much control. Doesn't play as much control elements. Now it has some control cards. It has stuff like Lucifer. It's got signs and it's got space-time collapse, but its goal is not to just play this really long control game. And so if you have an Arthur Pendragon in your opening hand, it's awkward as a 5-drop card because if you're playing like the aggro mirror, you may not make it to turn 5. Let's be honest here. You may not make it to turn 5. You may be forced to judgment Gill Lapis early, even in like the non-aggro mirror, just like a deck that's trying to go wide. In any way, you may be forced to Judgment Gill Lapis early and threaten a God's Art to try to restabilize the board. That is one of the advantages of Gill Lapis, is that he can do that. If you have, especially if you have globes in play, you can Judgment, cancel like 1 or 2 activate abilities maybe, and then God's Art, and then like get yourself back in the game. And Arthur Pendragon's also decent at doing that, but the problem is that if you're forced to Judgment in a Gill Lapis, you're probably not calling a stone um, that turn, so you're losing tempo. You're probably not going to have 5 stones already, so you're probably not going to be able to drop Arthur. But that's even like an edge case scenario. That's even like a scenario where Arthur might be okay. Um, Early on in a lot of matchups, if you have an Arthur Pendragon in your hand, it's just a dead card. And this is partly why he doesn't see play, because he costs a lot. Like, sure, he's impactful, but there's no way to, unless you're playing Reanimator. Reanimator is probably one of the few decks where I'd consider Reanimator Control are probably like the 2 decks where high cost cards are more okay to have because you're trying to pitch them to graveyard and then cheat them in. Whereas stuff that you're just gonna hardcast, like in this deck, if you're just gonna be able to hardcast Arthur Pendragon, that's the only way you're really gonna get him into play. Um, in this situation, Arthur Pendragon is not so good. This deck, it doesn't seem like a deck that really wants to play Arthur. Just thinking about it more. So that's the main change I've made. I still think a speaker is necessary for reasons I said yesterday. You need a way to take out an enemy barrier. If the enemy drops a barrier of shadows on you, because so much of this deck relies on the earth to be able to judgment, to God's Art, and still have mana to do things, to use the globe to activate Gill Lapis's cancel ability, to cancel target activated ability. An enemy barrier actually hurts us pretty hard. Well, so does an enemy Gill Lapis, but that's actually less common than most people might think because most people have not. Gill Lapis is not like a ruler that's really been broken or anything. Most people aren't very happy in the way they've been trying to build Gill Lapis. So I think you have to have a way to get an addition and pop an addition, with the latter being a little bit more important because you don't really care as much about having additions in this deck, but popping an enemy barrier shadows is pretty crucial in a lot of matchups because it slows you down drastically because 8 cards in your deck are Regalia. So I think Speaker's great. Speaker's the best option. Like you could run Blessed Holy Wolf like as a one of, but I feel like the value you're getting out of Blessed Holy Wolf isn't enough. You're getting like a 4/6 body, whereas Speaker is gonna search you a card and then blow up that barrier anyway, or like a robe or something. And you're not gonna like you run stuff like Space Time Collapse, and you have other ways to just kill like a I don't know something with Ame no Habakiri on it. Um, that you don't really care so much to you don't really care about additions that aren't addition fields is my argument. So if we're gonna play speaker anyway, then I feel like you have to have a target, and I'd say the target is barrier. We could run robes, but I'm still not certain about robes because better in a lot of against a lot more matchups than Robe is. And I will say having drawing a barrier in a lot of matchups has also felt kind of awkward because it's been dead in a good number of matchups as well. So I may actually need to take some time to look at what the other edition fields available are, but I feel like it's going to be hard to beat Barrier Shadows because Barrier hits more decks than most other edition fields, but there might be a couple edition fields that provide us some utility that I haven't looked at, as opposed to being completely destructive. And if you don't know what I mean by that, I mean you generally want to play more cards that are constructive that help your game plan as opposed to destructive, which kind of slow down the opponent's game plan. Because if you're ahead, then something destructive doesn't necessarily keep you ahead, if that makes sense. And you want to maximize the number of ways that get you ahead and keep you ahead, without being like to win more, I should say. Whereas Barrier Shadows is purely destructive, and it's good. It can be good if you're like on a somewhat equal footing. It can even be decent if you're behind a little bit. But if you're like really far ahead, the Bear can range from like very good, depending on what kind of deck you're playing against, to very bad. So something purely constructive is almost always going to be good for us, whereas Barrier or something destructive is always dependent on what we're playing against. Okay, so that's what the deck looks like. And let's see if we can just make a game here. Now this is what, day 6, I think? The last time, the Seer deck, I spent 1 week actually building it. Well, actually I spent like 1.5 weeks, but only made like six or seven videos before, 6 or 7 videos before I just started testing matchups and then try to like finalize the sideboard. So I want to solidify the main board as much as I can in this video and the next video. This way it doesn't just keep dragging on as I just like kind of try different things. I want to just like get a mental note of what feels clunky, what feels bad or feels like it wasn't so great. Maybe trim down some of those numbers. Some of them are kind of hard. I think the Percevals are awkward a lot of times, but Percy, I think is still necessary because if you get Herod, like if you're on the draw and your opponent goes turn 2 Hera and just blows up like one of your Regalia, then you have to have a Percy or another Regalia in hand in order to keep going. Otherwise, you're running the risk of just calling Rulers Morias and just being a turn behind every time. And if that happens, you almost certainly lose the game. So I feel like we have to run Percys, and if we're going to run Percys, we need to run a decent number of hits. We have, not counting one of the Percys that we'd be playing, we'd have 2 other Percys left in deck, 4 Lancelots potentially, so that's 6, 8 Regalia. Wait, did I do my math wrong? Hang on. 8 Regalia plus 2 Percys is 10. And then 4 Lancelots 14. Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah, 14. 14 hits, not including the person we just were just playing. Um, so I think that's okay. Uh, that's I think that's like a decent number of hits with Perceval to still justify running it. Of course, over time, as the game goes on, obviously there's gonna be less hits. But if you think about, it, there's also less cards in your deck, so it more or less kind of like evens out. Unless you just like open like all 3 Percevals or something, that'd be pretty bad. But overall, I just want to. I may want to increase the number of thunders, so it's possible that this 4th spacetime collapse I put in should be a 3rd thunder instead. Um, I just want to get a feel for the numbers and the way this deck kind of plays out, just to see what is clunky and what needs support, uh, and whatnot. So while we're waiting, I can probably just check. Um, Actually, I want to check the Italian website first to see if now they're playing Alice Block. New Frontiers. Oh no, this is New Frontiers here. Is this the one where Cthugha won? This is the one where Cthugha won. Yeah. This is pretty similar to my Cthugha 1.0 list, except it is susceptible to split. A lot of the sideboard is actually very similar to mine. The Vlad, the sideboard, Dark Alice, the 3 Heras. I feel like this guy definitely read my article. Some of these numbers, like the 3 Scorn, is exactly the same. 4 Lucifer, exactly the same. Executioner, I can't really talk about because that's kind of like, why wouldn't you run 4 Executioner, right? So I want to go back. Let's see. What are some things these guys are running. Granted, this probably isn't an event to look at because if Cthugha 1.01, then I don't think there were a lot of good players here. I don't see any. I do know a lot of the good Italian players, and I don't really see their names on here. So I figured this was just like more or less an event people didn't care for because Italy's switching to Alice Block, and so a lot of people that take the game very seriously over there are already testing for Alice Block as opposed to just showing up for the last New Frontiers tournament they had. Um, I don't really see anything new here that I might want to consider running. Of course, there's the Six Sages deck. It seems like the addition of choice is barrier, and so I think that's one we'd end up sticking with. Um, there is a block event I can look at, but block doesn't. The problem with looking at block is that there's no there aren't many. The only like good target in the newest sets in Alice Block is Barrier Shadows anyway, so you're not gonna have any of the like Grim Cluster edition fields. No one's gonna play those in Alice Cluster because they're not even legal. This is interesting. Who won this? Okay, I've never heard of him. I've never heard of this person either. A lot of Shion here. No, I don't recognize any of these names, so I figure nobody went to this one either. Or at least no one like in the top 10 of Italy went to those events. db.forcefultcg.us. This is gonna take a while if we just do. If we just look at these, like all the cards in New Frontiers. Oh, I should filter by type, right? So like filter edition field. Okay, this is a lot easier. Okay, we're gonna remake this game because no one joined. This search shouldn't take too long. Okay, so we have Holy Grail, destroy target edition, remove all damage dealt to target J ruler this turn. No. This one's okay. We don't run enough humans. Bloody Moon would be funny, but no. Stone Bowl of Buddha, no. Cottage of Cakes, no. Carry of Shadows, no. 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 Lumia would be funny, but no. Endless War. Resonators must attack if able. That is funny. But I don't think we'd want to run it. I actually didn't know this card existed. This is pretty funny. Realm is actually not too bad of a target, but I don't think we'd want to run Realm. Necronomicon doesn't synergize well with our Pitch Black Moon. Refarth doesn't really make sense. Book of Genesis costs too much. Players cannot gain life. This is potentially dangerous, and it costs a lot for 3. The Milky Way. No. Barrier Field is too reactive. A lot of these are not. Yeah, a lot of these are not going to cut it. Transparent Moon doesn't hit enough. So Gill Lapis 5 color. So let's just see what we have here. We do have a Rukh Egg and Laevateinn start. We're gonna pitch this. I like keeping the Pricia, even though it's a little slow. We'd have to play it turn 3. Go ahead and put Gill Lapis into play. Let's Book of Iban. It's interesting, but probably not good enough. Sarto. All of these are too situational. Either specific or situational is the real problem. Invasion Ship, no. Barrier is probably the most impactful out of these. Awakening, Pitch Black Moon. Windscleed Refuge is a thing, but I think it's a little bit too reactive. Whereas we're playing a very proactive deck, so I don't think that cuts it. So it looks like it's just going to be Barrier, which, I mean, it makes sense. depending on what I draw. So what I'm gonna do next turn is I'll draw. If it's not a Lancelot, then I'll get a Lancelot. Right now in my mind, I'm running through the the choice of third Thunder versus fourth Spacetime Collapse. I actually think I want a third Thunder because in my previous video, we were under pressure. I mean, we did win a game where we won against, I think, Sylvia, not Sylvia. We won against like the aggro mirror, like another aggro Gill Lapis. But what happened uh, is we lost game two on the draw. We were on the play in games one and three, and so we won those pretty handily, as is what happens in aggro. We lost game two because we couldn't deal with the Cthugha, and so I think between Space Time Collapse and between the Space Time Collapse and a Cthugha, or not, and a Thunder, I mean, I think I want a Thunder because it's better on the draw against Cthugha. Yeah. I actually don't mind him knowing my hand, to be honest, but if I'm not playing Reflect, then like I don't think there's a way for me to get rid of these anyway. If I was playing Reflect, I'd probably hide my whole hand, but I don't really care. We're testing. He'd probably write it down anyway. Granted, that requires skill and looking at your notes. But I don't know, I just like to be nice to people. Okay, so he has a Death Scythe. Why would you drop double Death Scythe? You're just revealing to me that you have dead cards in hand, or a dead card in hand. Go ahead and swing this. I don't know how Dark Alice actually beats aggro. You have to have like a very focused Dark Alice build, I feel like. Why wouldn't you remove... Okay, before recover, you definitely tap those and remove these two from the graveyard. You certainly don't like not do anything and call stone. Or not do anything and recover and then call stone. So you want to play as efficiently as possible. I actually wonder what he's doing here. I can't judgment off of this, so... swing this, see what happens. Or it's gonna get hit by like an endless night or like something else. It's gonna like... Okay. So it becomes a what? A 4/4? I mean, I don't have an instant, so yeah. Looks like it's gonna die. And then what we're gonna do... I don't want to play that, because it'll just die, so... Go ahead and kill those things off. That 2-for-1 though. Very, very strong. Do we just cast? I think we cast the Pitch Black Moon here. Because if I Judgment Gill Lapis, it's not like I'm going to be able to get it out of my deck anyway. And it's not even terrible, because if if I do have a way to, if I do hit a Moonstone, I can just buy back the Pricia. I can start buying back Pricia, and that would be pretty relevant because Pricia can gain flying. So I think it's, yeah, I think that's a really solid line of play. Depends on what stone I call, but I have two stones out of the six remaining, so it's what a 2 out of 6 is 1 and 3. So like a 33% chance. It's gonna like cast a Mephistopheles on me. Okay. So pressure becomes a 5/2. Why would you just play these things? I'm a little confused. He probably doesn't run Guinevere, but I don't feel like... I don't know. I guess if you're not running Guinevere... Okay, so turn 1 I thought he might have ran like a red-black build, so it would make sense to hold on to one of these. But I guess if he has like no way to deal with it, then it doesn't really matter. No way to like utilize it, I mean, then it doesn't matter. So Percy's gonna die like no matter what if I was to just cast a Perceval here. Attack for 5. Let's see. I think at this point... Okay, so I don't want to play the Percy here. I want something... I want to hit a Moonstone. This way when my Pricia dies, I can buy her back. So we're looking at 2 out of 5 hits now. So that's like a 40% chance to hit a stone. The other alternative is play Percy, get a globe, and then Judgment, and that might have been really good. Actually, that would have been pretty good. I actually wonder, okay, so one thing in this deck, the Laev is not as good. Obviously, the Laev's like not doing anything unless I have a way to Judgment. So maybe maybe I do need to run 4 globes, even though globe is not that great of a card. Actually, I don't agree with that. Here's why. If he didn't have the Arthur in play, not every deck's gonna play Arthur. If he didn't have the Arthur in play, I could play Perceval and it wouldn't be bad. The reason why I'm not playing Perceval here is mostly because 1, it would just die, and if I miss on Perceval, it would just be awful. Basically, I'd have discarded a card. And 2, I want to be able to pitch it to Pitch Black Moon. In a normal case, I probably would have played the Perceval, and then if all I hit was like another Perceval, then I would have held on to that Perceval and pitched it to Pitch Black Moon. But if I had gotten a Regalia, then I could Judgment, and we'd be in a pretty solid position, I think. 2, 3, 4. Just gonna play second Arthur. So now Pricia dies the moment she comes into play. So we have a couple options here. One is to just Judgment and then attack. Is that the safer option? This is like a math thing, a probabilities thing. So we have 5 stones called. Both stones that can produce moon are still in here. So we have a 2 out of 5 chance. That's 40% chance to hit. I don't like that the odds there, because if I call and I miss, then what do? I basically do nothing, right? So I think it's better to just judgment and then yeah, I think it's better to just judgment. He's not playing. He's playing blue black, so it's probably best. I like doing that. I like doing judgment here, even though I can't attack because he has death sights. I can't even target. I can't even cancel an activated ability. I can minus two something, and I can also sign him if he was to play another resonator. Um, so I think I just pass. This is safe because I can block one of the Arthurs. I obviously don't block the first one, but if the second one were to attack, I could block that one. Okay, does he have like Lunya or something? I actually like Lunya as a card. It's just that without a reliable turn one mage start, it's very hard to activate Lunya. There's argument to running mage start in a control deck because you want the game to go long anyway, and eventually you're going to be able to like start making things like whatever you want. That happens, yeah. So here's the thing: if I attack him, so I don't just sign before recover, right? I could just sign right now. But if I attack him and he blocks, then I just sign whatever he. I just sign the blocker, right? He tapped Moonstart, so I don't need to worry about Moonstart making Gill Lapis something, and then him playing. Well, yeah, and then him playing like a Lunya. Yeah, Hera does have -4. That is a good catch. He's probably realizing that he's probably just dead. I'm not gonna unreveal these. Not playing Reflect. If you're wondering why, so the new cards I draw, so whenever you click Reveal Hand, it only reveals the cards that are currently in your hand. So when I draw a new card for the turn, he's not going to see that card. It's going to show up as unknown to him. Yeah, this is why the line doesn't work. You can't just be like, oh, he can sign me. Like, no, you're just dead, dude. Okay, let's make some changes. Well, okay. What did I actually want more of? I wanted more globes. The 3 globe actually sucked. As weird as that sounds. I think 4 Laevateinn is fine too. Apollo I could probably cut. Flying is relevant, but I feel like I don't know, it's hard. I feel like I want 4 Lay, 4 globe. The 4 space-time collapse. I feel like as a concession to aggro, I do want 3 thunders in here. Let's just go ahead and make those changes and just kind of test it. Test how it feels. I just want to streamline the strategy a little bit more. Thunder makes a little bit more sense than like space-time collapse anyway. Because even though, I don't know, if I can run for space-time collapse, I think I want to, but I don't know how I'd fit it. So here, like the Lave is still good. Rukh Egg is still fine. The Thunder. Like if I was on the draw against aggro, then I definitely keep the Thunder. I'm on the play, I probably pitch the Thunder. I'm on the draw, and I know I'm not playing against aggro, so I'll pitch the Thunder. The rest of this, I'll just keep. If you turn 1 scorns me, like I'm okay with that, I think. I don't know why you play Shadow's Memoria, because there's actually no reason not to play a Darkness Magic Stone, unless you're actually playing Shadow Resonators. It's better just to play a no. No. It's gonna score me instead. That's fine. Yeah. So he wants to get rid of my turn 1 play. He probably has another scorn, so he can hit the other Lancelot. That might be pretty good. We'll see. So I know he plays 0. The Thunder is actually not like completely dead here. The number of Thunders is like dependent on how many aggro decks I play against, but I feel like even though Thunder feels like a mediocre card some of the time, that it's still important to have some number of Thunders. Okay, I'm just gonna create a new game because he obviously is like not. This is like a little frustrating because he's obviously not. There's too many things that went wrong that game. One is playing Cheshire Cat, seeing two cards. That's drawing extra cards. Calling two stones and then playing the Cheshire Cat anyway. It's kind of like. Or calling two stones and then playing Cheshire Cat is like failure to maintain game state. Or like it's turn two. How do you fuck up like seeing that you have three stones in play? Or how do you like screw up thinking like, oh, I haven't called stone this turn? It's the second turn of the game. You have two stones in play. Like, I mean, it's not that hard to catch. But granted, there could have been a lot going on in his mind. But yeah. Okay, so let's go back to the deck. I think the Three Thunders, I wasn't able to test it that game, but I think Three Thunders is still correct because on the draw against aggro, if he'd like turn one Cthugs, the awkward part is that Thunder's not good in like any other instance except against Cthug. I don't know. It's really hard because between Spacetime Collapse and Thunder, Spacetime Collapse is better against a non-aggro deck, whereas Thunder is good against like specifically Cthug and Pricia. So I think I think we need Thunders because it answers Pricia. We need to split Thunder and Spacetime Collapse, even though I would really like a fourth Spacetime Collapse. There's just not room. You have to keep the Susanowo, I think, because against a good Turbo Gwyver player, they're going to Judgment Refrain the same turn they play the Gwyvers anyway, or at least if they're good, they probably will. So it's best to have a searchable out to Gwyver that's not a spell. Pitch Black Moon has been one of the most awkward cards, mostly because I've been drawing them, and it's not something I want to draw. It's possible that we want to run, if we run Speaker, like she can grab Pitch Black Moon, but you never want it in hand, right? Because Pitch Black Moon is something you're going to put into play with Gill Lapis. So like on the Judgment, you're going to search your deck and put it into play. So it's a card that you're getting for free out of your deck. You don't want to actually have it in hand ever, because you don't want to ever hardcast it, because that's just spending mana inefficiently. Because Pitch Black Moon should cost, this deck, Pitch Black Moon basically costs 0. It costs 3. I mean, you're gonna Judgment and then you're gonna get it. So I don't want that to be the only target for Speaker of Creation. Barrier might have been, Barrier would have been mediocre that game, I think. But I think Barrier is better in like a control matchup. Whereas if we're playing kind of an aggro deck anyway, I think control-y decks are more of our issue than getting like a robe, a fire rat. So we'll see. I think the current build is pretty solid. The excess Laevateinns can be a little weird, so I might want to. It's hard because, in a way, I want to fit an Apollo, but Laevateinn is very good with Rukh Egg. So if we mold into like Apollo and Rukh Eggs, like the hand's just awful. Whereas we don't have that many ways to get rid of Rukh Egg, so even though we're a red deck, that's actually one of the clunkier parts of this deck. So we're a red deck that has Rukh Egg and like 4 ways to banish a Rukh Egg. It's possible that instead of Lucifers, we want like Thugs. Sign was pretty good that game. The 3 Flame King shouts, I think that might be a little high. I think okay, that makes sense. Like if we go down a number of Flame King shout, we're running Sign of the Future anyway. So against a Swarm deck, maybe I don't know, like it's hard. Flame King shout, I feel like we go down to Flame King shout, and then 2 Flame King Shout, 2 Sign. This covers the Swarm decks. Flame King Shout is good against like the more weedy Swarm decks, whereas Sign is good against like the Swarm decks that want to go a little wider. And this could let us fit in a Force Space-Time Collapse, or like I said, our problem is that we have Rukh Eggs that we can't just sack off. And our mulligan constraints are already too hard, so if we have a Laevateinn, we can't just like... If we're already looking for Regalia, then... Wait, is it still 40 cards if we make this change? No, it's 39. Okay, if we have Ruler's Memoria, our mulligan constraint is that we have to mulligan for Regalia, right? So I don't think we can just like mull hard for Rukh Egg and Cthugha with that constraint. But I think 2 Flame King Shouts is fine. Flame King Shout has been one of the more awkward cards in that deck, I'd say. Or at least in the last situation, it's felt a lot more awkward. So I think Illusory may not be good because it's competing with Gill Lapis in terms of activated abilities. So if we just, what if we just try cutting Lucifers and just ran Cthugha? We ran 3 Cthughs. Even though there is that constraint of like, even though there's the constraint of having the Regalia that we're gonna mulligan for, I don't think this deck is in a position where you're trying to turn 1 Cthugha all the time. So having Cthughs in the deck is still okay, even though it's weird because like usually if you have Cthugha and Rukh Egg, you're like, okay, I don't have to mulligan for Regalia because I'm probably playing a base red deck with no Ruler's Memoria. So I'm just gonna mull really hard for Rukh Egg Cthugha because that's like the best start you can have, because that guarantees your turn 2 Lance, and it guarantees you have a strong start turn 1 as well. So here it's a little different because we're gonna run 3 Cthughs without the intention of mulling really hard for Rukh Egg Cthugha, but instead to mull more for Thunder on the draw, or Regalia and Thunder on the draw, and then Regalia and I don't know, just like something on the play. I don't think we want to run 4 Cthughs because that's a little excessive. I think Cthugha is more of like after we've gotten in damage with like Pricia and Lancelot's, if we have a Rukh Egg to stack to Cthugha, then we do it. Otherwise, like if we just happen to draw into a Cthugha, we're calculating how much damage we can get in that turn. So I think that's kind of the goal of the deck here. And it's a little weird because cards like Speaker are awkward. What if we just cut the Speaker and Barrier? So I know Barrier has hurt me, at least as far whenever they play Barrier on me, because it turns off like most of the Regalia. But the Speaker's a little awkward in the deck because it conflicts with the game plan of putting on pressure and then Judgment into Gill Lapis. It doesn't support that game plan. The way we're using Speaker is more of a destructive way to get a Barrier of Shadows, and then possibly to blow up their Barrier of Shadows, or possibly like a Robe. And that's something that concerns me. Like if they play a Robe of Fire Rat on us, we don't have a lot of good ways to just bust a Robe. Yeah, it's kind of difficult. Like we don't have a lot of ways to just like pop a Robe of Fire Rat. But Speaker definitely does feel awkward the more I think about it. So I want to think about how we can shore that section up. Okay, he's revealing his ruler before mulligan, so I'll be nice and do the same thing. We do have... Okay, we're on the play. Oh, I don't want to see these cards. This is a funny hand. No, it's funny because it's like... No, fuck you. I already mulled as if I'm on the play. Like, if you're gonna mull and then roll, that's not how this works. You mulligan differently whether you're on play or draw. So, like, don't mulligan and be like, oh, now I'm gonna roll. No, if you're, like, awful at this game, you may not understand why it's necessary to determine who goes first before you mulligan, but your mulligan should change whether you're first or second. So I'm not gonna roll. I'm just gonna say the turn selector selected me, and we're just gonna go with it. Otherwise, I'm gonna redo my mulligan and keep that thunder if I happen to be on the draw. It cannot be difficult to decide whether you call stone or not on turn 1. This hand is like awkward and funny. If he goes turn 1 barrier, this hand is awful. If he doesn't, then I just judgment next turn. And it's super funny. I just judgment next turn, and then I God's Art like the turn after that. So, okay, I'm just gonna assume he's AFK and like leave. I'm really sorry, guys, about the poor quality today. Although it's not even like my fault. It's my first match opponent just like basically cheated twice in game 2, and then that that game was just awful. The game I just left. So let's go back here and talk about the deck. Alright, what was the problem? Speaker creation, barrier shadows. Barrier shadows not so much. If you're playing an aggro deck and then you drop a barrier on them, that's actually pretty good. In a lot of cases. Well, it depends on like how they're dealing with your aggro. If it's Robo Fire Rat, then obviously barrier's not very good. I mean, I can cut the Speaker of Creation and the barrier for to Dream of Juliet, and that might be something I do, even though I know like Adam Reiser's not a fan, and a lot of like good players aren't a fan of it. But my logic is that you need a way to be able to beat Robe main board, especially against like Alice's World. Granted, I don't know how this deck fares against Alice's World. I don't even know if it's good at all. But I feel like you need ways to pop a Robe. Otherwise, you're not going to get through. And Dream is one of my favorite cards to do that because you can cycle it if it's dead. And if it's not dead, then it's just not dead. Like, it can also hit a barrier shadow. So let's just go ahead and make that change now. Let's go ahead and streamline the deck a little bit more. And just put 2 dreams. Even though a lot of people don't like this card, but you know what? This card has done wonders for me whenever I was testing the Sylvia deck. So I'm going to presume that since we're also a red deck, and mostly red deck here, that Dream is going to be good as well. And I want to get at least one game in for this video today. It's awkward and painful because my games today have been awful, but if I can get one game, just with this new list, with the dreams and whatnot, it'll probably feel less clunky, more streamlined, but we'll see. I want to see how it actually feels and plays before I jump to any sort of conclusions. I do want to get a quick count. So I pitched Black Moon. So I need 3. That's 7, 8, plus 4 is 12. I have 15. Wow. Okay, that's actually not a lot of targets to discard with Pitch Black Moon. I remember whenever I was playing my Sea or the Blue Moon control deck, I originally had Pitch Black Moon in there, but I had somewhere around 21 targets. So, let's see, 3, 7... Oh no, did I forget the Rukh Eggs? 3 plus 4 is 7, plus 4 is 11, 12, 16, 19. Okay, that's a lot better. No, that's I'm okay with that actually. 19 is a lot better than 15 for Pitch Black Moon. Yeah. So this deck so far, like the way it's evolved, seems to be a lot better. That's a lot of hours. 40.2 hours on here. Why does my game not show up? Like, I mean, I can enter and leave it here, but like, it doesn't seem. Okay, there it is. Go ahead and close this database here, since I'm no longer on the speaker of creation plan anyway. I think it was after thinking about it more, I realized okay, speaker creation is tangent to the way that we want to be popping additions. We want to be popping additions at like instant speed, possibly on our upkeep or on before our recovery phase if we have 2 mana up, as opposed to playing Speaker of Creation and then paying 1 more mana to pop it and then getting like a Barrier of Shadows from our speaker. That doesn't seem as good. Barrier has also been dead a lot of the time, so the deck definitely feels clunky in its strategy. But as a red deck, we're not as clunky as like a control deck in this game, which has to play cards like Barrier, I think, to hit multiple threats and like avenues anyway. To hit multiple threats at different angles, whereas we have a more streamlined strategy that we're aiming towards. Whereas control decks are almost always purely like destructive, or mostly destructive with a decent mix of constructive elements. So it's kind of awkward building control in this game because they control decks generally always feel clunky. Um, at least in some cases when I was testing the Seer of the Blue Moon list, there were situations where my hand felt clunky because I was like playing against a J ruler and like a lot of my removal does not hit J rulers. It was more about like winning on the board with against resonator based decks. So we don't have that problem as long as the way to fix that problem is just be proactive. In Force of Will, it's not a game where so part of the reason why control doesn't exist in Force Will is because the decks are too varied. It's not like Magic where there's like 4 to 5 tier decks in a tournament, and if you don't show up with like one of those tier 1 decks, you're probably just gonna get crushed. So it's easy to say, okay, well, all of the decks, almost all the decks that are gonna be played at a tournament are gonna be like the tier decks. So you can build a control deck that's good against most of those, or at least has a 50-50 matchup roughly against all of the tier 1 decks. Force of Will is not the same. Force of Will, if you think of it in terms of tiers, the only tier 1 decks are probably like Alice's World. That's probably like it. There's a lot of decks that come close, but the tier 2 and like tier 1.5, if you really wanted to argue that, I'd say most decks are tier 1.5. The number of decks in tier 1.5, like almost tier 1, are so high, and part of this is because of reflect consistency and some other factors that are honestly problems in the game right now. The number of the decks that could be tier 1 or that are close to tier 1 are so high. It's hard to build a control deck in the game because you're probably going to have like a matchup that you didn't account for, that you weren't even expecting. And so you have to hit a bunch of different angles as a deck, as a control deck. And it's very hard to do that when you don't know what the field is. Or at least when the field is so wide, is the better way to put it. So we're on the draw. I don't want the Pitch Black Moon, that's for sure. I think I don't want 2 Precious. I think I want to hit... I want to keep the 2-drop, but if we're against aggro, it might be too slow to keep Precious. So I think I want to just mulligan for like Thunders or something. Yeah, so this is a little awkward, but what we can do here... Actually, there's not much we can do here. This is a little awkward. Just kind of awkward. Yeah, so we'll see. Hopefully our draw fixes it, but the Cthugha definitely feels awkward here. We'll see. If it feels awkward over the course of the game, then we might consider cutting it and replacing it. But I do want to get in a game with the Cthugha and just kind of see how it is. So we're playing against Cthugha 1.0. I played against this yesterday, and It didn't bode too well for me. We don't have a turn 1 play, so it's not probably not going to matter here. Go ahead and pass. Oh, I didn't even play the Earth. I should have done that before calling Stone. For some reason, I got caught up and forgot I am playing Rulers and Morias. So this is a Moonshade. Okay, so now he can activate the Executioner if that was an Executioner. Otherwise, if I actually had a turn 1 play, he couldn't have activated. But his type of deck also is weak against a J Ruler strategy, and that is an option for us. So yeah. Now is he gonna trigger the Nighttime Raiders then? So he's gonna do massive disadvantage, card disadvantage, just to get what, a Meph into play? Okay. So I'm mainly looking to see if I can draw a space-time collapse now. So this hand is incredibly awkward here. Go ahead and play one of these. I'm now wondering if my stone base is a little awkward. I might need to run some number of white stones. Yeah, probably do. If he attacks with the Meph, then what I do is before recover, thunder it, Flame King Shout, and then swing Lancelot into it. I think is the play. I do have to thunder it, don't I? Let's see, thunder, Meph. Then I have to Flame King Shout into a Cthugha here. Probably, because Meph has 10, that brings it to 6. When we attack here, target Meph. Hope he doesn't have an Executioner. Oh, okay, so he has that. Yeah, I think he has it. Most likely he has it. This makes me want to go up in the number of Makes me want to go up to the fourth space-time collapse. I think that's good enough justification because I don't think the Cthugs are even good here. I think I want to go down to Cthugh and see. Because Cthugh is not something I want 3 of. Cthugh is something I might incidentally want in a specific case. Yeah, Cthugh is something I'd want if I had like a Pricia or something to sack. So like, it's probably not that good to have. Let's see. This is actually a good game to test against, just to see what it's like. So I know what I'm playing against this time. Yeah, I like this a little bit better. The Cthugh is still awkward here. I mean, it's not awkward, but like, I feel like having the Laev in the egg is almost like just as good. So here we're going to Rukh Egg, Cthugh. Get ourselves another Cthugh because we're going to play that next turn anyway. So no. We're gonna play Rukh Egg into the other Cthugh next turn, followed by Perceval. Yeah. That's probably just like a nighttime Raiders because that's kind of what this deck's trying to do. So I think we're fine just swinging or just like playing dudes and then trying to get in damage. Yeah. I think getting a Pricia here is good. Yeah, swing here and then play at Perceval. That's not quite what I want to do. It's like 4 more. Let's see. I could get a Lancelot here, but I could also grab one of these. I could Judgment and then use this. I can just get a Lancelot. Actually, I think I want the glow a little bit more. I don't think so. I think the Lancelot is better here. Put these on the bottom in that order, and then I'll pass. He could have a sign, but I doubt it. I don't think that's what his deck's trying to do. So we'll see. him here. Because we can just Judgment and then swing in. So, I feel like... Oh, I should have tapped this before recovered then. I think I still swing with this here. I'm not really sure. I can call Stone and then swing. Put this into play. So he's just gonna leave up the space-time anomaly then. Like, I can swing here, and if he attempts the space-time anomaly... Oh, he certainly doesn't block this. Does he? No, if he doesn't, he has to like... Yeah. Let's see. 'Cause I could Judgment and then just like beat in for damage. It would get the Underground Dragger off the field, right? And it put on immense pressure because he has to deal with the Judgment Gill Lapis. Let's see. I do have a moon source, so I can just start buying back the Pricia if need be. Let's see, something has died. Don't damage this turn. I mean, I don't know what that face down thing is, so. I could Dream of Juliet his blocker. I think that'd be pretty good. The two Cthugs were good, but and that's in this specific instance, like this small of a sample size. I still am not happy with them in the deck. I feel like they should be something else. And by something else, I think they have to be another Resonator. Otherwise, we're just cutting down on the number of, like, okay. Isn't he just dead then? So we're down to 18 targets for Pitch Black Moon. Because we went down to 2 Cthugs. What can I replace Cthugha with, though? I could run Lucifers. I mean, that goes... That's what I was originally running, but... I'm not really sure. So we're on the draw. I don't think I want both of these. I think... Yeah, these two are fine. It's probably like a Nighttime Raiders or something. But... I don't know, I think his deck is clunky. If this is the Six Sages gaming list, trying to cheat in meth, I think it's most definitely a clunky deck. Attempt to play one of these things. And we probably... Yeah, okay. Just play one of these. Pass. He's gonna trigger the Nighttime Raiders on me now. Yeah, so it's gonna cheat MF into play. So let me thin the deck a little bit and get another Pricia. So no. So what I really want to draw here is like assign the future or something. But it doesn't look like we're gonna hit assign, so I think we're just gonna cast this. Go ahead and play our Perceval here. Get what, a Lancelot? Yeah. I should have done that in the reverse order. I put them at the bottom. But yeah, this is partly why I don't like Nighttime Raiders, because you lose... Okay, so he lost an Alice's Little Scout Force. He lost the Nighttime Raiders. And that's -2 cards, and then you put in a Lucifer, and then I killed the Lucifer, so I 1 for 3'd him. Or a 3 for... I got a 3 for 1, basically. And if he plays like Mephistopheles here, that could be pretty good, but then he has to like sack his Executioner, or like his Izanami. Executioner. If he swings with this, I take it, and then I do have... I think I do have... I can Judgment, and then swing, and then kill something, probably. Judgment, swing, and then threaten to God's Art next turn. That is a thing. Yeah. How much could I swing for here? Be 14, 16. I can swing for 18 potentially. I don't think that's very good. That could be a number of things. So I want to go ahead and let's go ahead and call a stone here, because I don't think I actually am going to Judgment this turn. Swing at this thing. Okay, so that happens. Yeah. So he had an Executioner. I really want to see a sign for some odd reason. He doesn't have like immediate pressure on me, so I think I'm okay. Even though I have lower life, I'm still at 20, so I'll probably just chump the Izanami with Perceval. Yeah. That is a thing. Sure. I will. Sure. Okay. So what would have been good here? Flame King Shout would have been good here. So this is argument to going back up to 3 Flame King Shout. Before he played the Executioner. But I don't know. We'll see. Kill that thing. The rest of those things are on the ground, right? So I could just Judgment, Swing, Pass. What does he have in the graveyard? He's low on cards. I feel like that's better than, I feel like Judgment, Swing is a lot better than the alternative. Than to play a Rukh Egg and pass? That doesn't seem very good. Or, not even Rukh Egg, play a Pricia and pass. Go ahead and swing here. See if I can make this trade. And then next turn I can attempt to God's Art. Yeah. Yeah, there's that one. His deck seems like it's trying to run competing game plans. Like, despite him having this, I feel like he's not really doing that much on board. So, I'm gonna have to discard a card. Sure. If he's just trying to like aggro me out and like race, I don't feel like that's the best game plan. And I'll make that trade of Izanami if he really wants to make this trade here. Okay. If he has a space-time anomaly, then playing the Pricia here is not very good. So I think it's better to pass. It's better to pass and then God's Art at the end of his turn. And that way I can leave up mana to... I can God's Art using this, and then leave up mana for Pitch Black Moon. If I really need to buy something back at the start of my turn. Guinevere can get him pretty far. So I think I think what I do is I kill off the Guinevere. I mean, that's a thing. Killing off the Guinevere would be pretty good. Because Guinevere is how he's going to get back in this game, if anything. So it's probably best to get rid of it if I can. It's probably better to God's Art here, though. I think it's better to God's Art. Yeah. It's got 2 Mephs in play. Do I want the Meph? Or do I want the Lucifer? I'll probably get Lucifer, and I get a Resonator, Regalia, and Addition, but he doesn't really have Addition, so I actually think I want the Lucifer here, because I can start getting life. The Meth I could get, but then I have to start sacking off my own dudes, so I feel like probably gonna bash isn't on me. Okay, so he's gonna get rid of the Guinevere then. Okay. Yeah, I think we're gonna attack for 6 first. Cthugha definitely feels clunky here, so I think I'm just gonna cut the Cthugs. Um, I could just attempt to pressure him, like just rush and pressure him out. I think so. I think I need to go for him, as opposed to trying to hit his board here, because he's probably just gonna block with something anyway. So I could have called Stone to give it flying, but it's better to just attack with the Primo, I think. Yeah, Cthugha feels awkward here. I'm not sure. I think I want a third Flame King Shout in this deck. But I don't... It's hard because I can't just keep cutting down on cards that... So he has 9 damage right there. What's the chance he has something that can, like, just aggro me out? I don't think he does. I don't... Yeah, I can't just, like, Okay, so Dream was awkward here, but I think if he actually had a Robo Fire at, the Dream would have been fine. It was awkward because I didn't really have a time to cycle it. I think it's still better in Speaker though, because Speaker would cost 3 to pop the Robe, and it slows down the game plan drastically. So I think what we're looking at is we just want to figure out what to do with Cthugha. I think I do want a third Flame King Shout. I don't know, because Flame King Shout like conflicts with Sign of the Future. So I mean, I think okay. I think we'll stick with 2 Flame King Shout, 2 Sign of the Future. The Cthugs are awkward. The Dream was awkward, but only because he didn't have a robe, and we didn't have a time where we really wanted to cycle it. I feel like Dream should actually just be cut, because instead of Dream, we could just have Answers to Robe in the sideboard and just try to power through with like Gill Lapis or something. I'm not sure. There might be a way to do this. It's hard. Oh, he already left the game. Yeah. Okay, so what am I thinking of here? Dreams and Cthugha, awkward cards. They're against the game plan, or they're counter to the game plan. I feel like Flame King Shout would have been better or decent there, but if we cut the Cthugha and Dreams, we go down to 15 targets for Pitch Black Moon. 15 Resonators total in the deck. And I don't think we can do that. Or no, we'd go to 16, right? Let's count. 3, 7, 11, 12, 15. No, it is 15. So right now we're at 17, actually. Right? 3, 7, 11, 12, plus 4 is 15, plus 2 Cthugha is 17. So... Actually, Dream was fine, I think. Dreaming the blocker was great. The Cthugs are the awkward one. And I don't think we run like Lucifer. I also don't think we run... Let's see. Well, we could run Lucifer. It makes the Earth have more application. So we could run Lucifer, we could run... I don't think we run Athena. Let's see. Athena's problem is that it requires a mana sink, and it's just a 3 mana 7/7 that like dies the Executioner. It doesn't really provide value, whereas Pricia always provides value, unless she gets exiled. So we I want to replace both Cthugs with something else, but I'm not sure yet. I think the way the deck's been flowing is that it might actually be Illusory, because the way the deck flows is we put pressure early on, and then Lucifer would fly, so that's decent. But I don't know. It's like it's awkward. What is like we could run a little Dread maybe, but like if we're playing against an enemy Gill Lapis or if they have a Barrier of Shadows, our only way to sack something is Laevateinn. So Little Dread is not actually as good. I do like the 4 space time collapse. I think that's a good choice. I don't know. I'll have to think about it. I want to I want to keep the number of targets or resonators to discard a pitch black moon above 15, but I'm not sure what resonators to put in place. And we have access to all 5 colors, so I'll be able to look at the spectrum. But the only problem is that we're playing a deck that wants to put on pressure early, and then follow up with like evasion or like something else that can put on a lot of pressure, like Gill Lapis. So the issue is that we need something that fits that specific game plan, and I think Cthugha actually fits, but I don't like Cthugha. But I don't know what to replace with it yet. So I think it's best just to end this video now and then return to it tomorrow. And then we already established. I think dreams are fine because dreaming the blocker to Gill Lapis was actually really good. I could replace Space Time with Stonings. That is an option because then you can instant cast Stoning to destroy the blocker as opposed to using Dreams. But I think Space Time Collapse, since we're mostly a tap out style deck anyway, that's the only application of Stoning is to Stoning on our turn anyway. So it's better just to have that 2-for-1 value of Space Time Collapse. Okay, yeah, I'm a little tired. I'm gonna stop this video here and then we'll return to it tomorrow and just see where we go from there. But the deck is starting to feel a lot more solid now, more streamlined, and I'm starting to really like how it plays. It's a little clunky and still just because we don't have like reflect filter to fix bad hands, but the game plan overall, I do like the fact that you can pursue like a fast judgment game plan or backed by like a fast gods art, or just to play the more standard red plan, but there's still some issues with it. It feels like, and we'll just take some time to work on those later.